Alrighty, so we'll keep an eye for anybody that's joining. But for anybody here, in case you haven't joined this call before, or Jody and I are new, Erica, and then Jody's on the call as well. And today we're going to break up the call into two halves. So first half, we do a little bit of a deep dive. So this week or this month, we're talking about kind of the different types of templates and why you might use a project template over a closed template. And then we'll also be diving into the different sections. So what's the difference between the non-closing section that has some weird quirks and stuff like that versus all of the other sections, and why I might use one over the other. So that'll be part of our discussion for today. And then we saved the second half of the call for any and all questions, whether it's about what we covered in the very beginning and you want to dive deeper into a specific instance or specific question you have about that, or if as you're using Keeper for your firm, you have a specific question. That's fair game for anybody who wants to kind of pop on and either troubleshoot a problem, ask a question, learn more about something that you aren't 100% sure where to start. Any of that's all fair game, and don't feel bad about asking any questions. I know sometimes it's like, well, this might not be relevant to other people, so I don't want to ask and like take up your time on the call or anything. But more often than not, you're not the only person with that question, or you may be opening up a door or seeding a new idea that somebody else might not have come across. So all questions are fair game when we get to that point. Feel free to throw anything in the chat as we're going along on that first half of this section, and we'll kind of loop back around to the end, but feel free to pop it in there so we can make sure to weave it in. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get into it. So let me make sure that I'm screen sharing and all of that's kind of set up. So give me 1 second for the technical biz. Alrighty. Can everybody see the Keeper screen that's open?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Beautiful. Let me make this a little bit larger so we can all see. I'm at least half blind, so I want to make sure everybody has a good view. All right, so getting into the different templates. So first and foremost, finding templates up here at the very top. And then you can see there's two main types of templates. So there's project templates, and then there's closed templates. Now, typically how we see this used most often is the closed template will be where you house all of the typical tasks that you're going to do throughout your close. So anything that happens monthly, and this closed template can actually be added to, like you can have tasks in any section. That's the main difference here, is that all of our project templates are just going to be related to non-closing tasks. So closed template, great for that detailed review at the end of the month, and especially if you have multiple different tiers. So maybe you have a basic tier, you have an advanced tier, and you have an enterprise or something like that. You can build out multiple closed templates as much as you want and drop them into a client. That's kind of the best use of the closed templates. And then when we get over to project templates, where we see this used most often is more processes that you have, like onboarding, offboarding, any services that you have like payroll or inventory or anything like that that may not happen with the same frequency as a close. Those are all absolutely great for these project templates because they can be layered on as you need them. Now, this project template also comes in handy when you have, if you're doing anybody who's not associated with QBO or Xero, this can be really helpful to create a template for non-connected clients. Because what we find is you can still have non-closing or non-connected clients, and you still may want to keep track of them, whether they're a payroll client or they're just in QBD or another process. You can still have them in Keeper, and you won't incur any fees or anything like that, but you won't have access to every single section. A lot of these sections inside of the client, like the account reconciliation, transaction review, payee entity review, won't be there or will be blurred out because they're not connected to the actual accounting software. So if that's the case, one way to keep track of all of the things that you're going to have to do for their close or for the services that you provide for them needs to go in a project template so it can just be housed in non-closing tasks. So quick recap. Closing templates are great for, just like it says on the name, month-end close, because they can go across all sections. And then the project templates are great for any services that you provide, anything that you may need for a client, but maybe not all of your clients. I think that's the best way to kind of think about this. A couple of great examples are payroll, non-connected clients, onboarding, or cleanups, or anything like that. So I'm going to pause there and make sure I didn't just like word vomit or go too fast. All of that clicking and making sense. Is there any questions on that right now? All of that good? Okay, beautiful. I'll rock on. So that's an intro into templates themselves. I will always put the disclaimer in, so I might as well do it now, that if you're just getting started in Keeper or you're starting to dabble with the project side of things and you've been using it for like your close and more of like the actual transaction things, you don't have to start with every template. I think it can be really overwhelming seeing this long laundry list of templates. That's probably not where you're going to start, and that's 100% okay. That's what we would suggest, is start with what you need to for this next close if you're starting to branch out into the project management side of things, and then you can add on as you need it. So adding on whether you have a contractor who's starting on to help you with payroll, or maybe they're starting to help with your onboarding process. Anything like that can be built out over time. But definitely, if the choice is, okay, I'm going to sit here and for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to bust out all of my templates, but then I lose steam and none of them get polished and none of it get tested and I'm just burnt out and nothing actually gets tried, or just building out the close template this month as you go through it, or getting a 1.0 and testing it out, that's what we would suggest 100 times out of 100, is just starting with what you need right this second, playing around, and you'll get more comfortable both in Keeper and in templates as you play around. So you'll find other things that you want to tweak, or, oh, I do have this payroll process that's a little bit different for this client, or anything like that. You can build that out over time, but definitely don't overwhelm yourself when you're getting started, and start simple and branch out from there. Always the disclaimer. So really important to help managing overwhelm when you're starting or branching out into a new system. With that being said, let's pop into a client and then we'll talk about the different sections. So we'll give this a second to load, but I'm sure you guys are relatively familiar that there's non-closing section, and then there's basically like all other sections. So when it comes to how they work, the non-closing section is going to be a little bit of a beast of its own. We have additional capacities and frequencies and stuff like that that we can play with. But if you are using any of the sections other than non-closing that come with Keeper, or you've added any custom sections yourself, they're all going to work as closing templates that will recur, or rather that will get wiped at the end of the month. And I think that's important to note, is that the non-closing section, you can set recurring. The closing section, you can set recurring, it's only monthly though, right? Because think of that as your close sections. They're going to wipe so that you can use the next one. Now, that isn't to say that you can't have a one-off task. Is that what you're going to say, Jody? Feel free to pop in if you want to.
No, I was just going to say, instead of saying wiped, I would say reset, because none of those tasks disappear. They just reset. So if you've marked all of them complete, then the next time when you switch over the close, then all of those are going to show as incomplete. So all of those sections that are considered closed sections are reset every month.
Appreciate that context. That's actually a lot more helpful to say it that way. So these will all be here, but just like this, it'll be reset so that they're fresh for this next close. Now, the non-closing section. So this is a really unique section in that we can set different frequencies other than monthly. So if you have something that happens weekly, bi-weekly, quarterly, annually, anything like this, this is going to be your main section for that, because it kind of pulls it out and gives you a little bit of freedom and play. Now, with that being said, that's amazing, that's incredible, but it can easily become a dumping ground for anything and everything that's not a close. So one of the ways that we can start to organize this section and make sure that we're kind of not getting overwhelmed with a long laundry list is to use any tags. So that can be set up here right on this bar. Keeper comes with a few. You can always customize it by either going into the gear settings here or in the full settings in your account. But the really great thing about tags is that you can filter this list just by the tag. So if I go in and I'm trying to look for just my weekly tasks, I can click the tag, and then it'll only show those pieces. So it just gives me a chance to like filter what I'm seeing. I'll show you how you can do that in the full task list here in a second. But while you're in a client, that's a great way to do that. And then if you want to get out of it, you can click all. Another way that we can help kind of keep organized and central around this section is to use the actual tag statuses. That's a specific thing around for non-closing tasks. And so that allows us to set something for in progress. It's not specific?
No, your status, your task statuses are for every single task.
For some reason, I had that in my brain opposite. So I appreciate that clarification.
Just tags. Yeah, tags are specific to non-closing tasks section, as well as your firm task sections. They can't be used anywhere else other than those two, but your task statuses can be used on any task.
Across the board.
Anywhere.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. So to recap and just double check then, seems like the non-closing tasks, we have that different frequency that we can set, and we have tags as the main difference here. Missing anything? Cool. Awesome. Thanks for that clarification. Really appreciate it. And then as always, when it comes to these sections, you can either add looms or resource videos or anything like that to the description, or add checklists underneath them to keep everything a little bit more organized, but give your team or yourself the information in the checklist as you need it, right? So you don't have to show it. It doesn't have to clog up the entire page. But if you or your team hasn't done that process in a while or needs a little bit of clarification on what steps actually need to happen with that, it's a great way to provide your SOPs within this task. So especially with my little bobble there about statuses, I want to do a quick double check and make sure, does everybody understand really the difference between non-closing tasks, that section, and the other sections, or did I muddy up the water anywhere? Oh, that feels pretty clear. Awesome. Cool.
Don't forget, you guys are welcome to throw in questions or comments in the chat if you need to as we go through.
I do have a question.
Yeah, feel free, pop in.
So the non-closing tasks can be set with repeaters for cadence other than monthly. Can it just also be one-off tasks if you don't set up a repeater? You just put one thing on there.
Absolutely.
As soon as it's marked done, it's not going to recur on the next one.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
and as you can see there with the non-closing task, another thing that's really special about this section are those, the due soon, due later, and completed. So the due soon, that's only going to show you what the dates here are within 7 days, or if there's no date at all. So if the date is blank, it will stay here on the due soon. If it's beyond 7 days out, it'll be housed on the due later tab. And then once it's completed, it'll move to that completed tab. So you'll always be able to see what was completed. And like when it was done. The due soon, like you said, you can set it to recur as much as you want. And then you can also have the one-offs in there as well, and they will not repeat. So with the close section, they will always repeat monthly. With non-closing, it's one and done unless you put in a recurring date. And we do have a question in the chat, Erica, about the gold star.
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is a built-in feature for Keeper to show kind of priority tasks. So this took me a little bit to find, but if you hover over the task, that star comes available to where you can click on it. So if you're having trouble and you can't find it, that's how to get to it, is just hover over the task. But where this really comes in handy is marking and notating for you or your team those tasks that are, it's a way to bring attention to a task. That actually helps me segue into another thing that I wanted to show with these sections. So let's show how we can actually filter by the high priority tasks. So give me 1 second to get this to load. But that can show, it'll show as a star in the actual client itself, but then we can actually go into our task list and filter by high priority. So it's already set up here, but you can also set that by using this filter here. So let me click on all of those that have priority. Let's see if I have any set that way. So this will give you a scope of anything that is high priority. Now you can additionally filter down this list. So maybe I just want to see high priority that are overdue or due today or overdue, just to get the scope of what's most important and what's due right now, so I can kind of take that whole big list and get it down to just what I need to prioritize today. With any of the views that we're going to talk about here in the next minute or so, you can do a saved view on it. So if you find that as an admin or as kind of the manager role or anything like that, you want to be able to just check certain amount of task lists and certain things to make sure everything's moving along. This is a really great way if you find yourself filtering down high priority and due this week or something like that very frequently, just save it as a saved view. And you can label those anything you want, share them. They can be private or shared across the firm, depending on who needs access to that view. But great example is we created a view. This is called My High Priority Tasks. So this uses the Assigned to Me filter, or this column here, the priority, and then you can also filter it by date if you needed to. One other thing I want to mention while we're in here and talking about kind of filtering that view down is if we wanted to see anything that we've used a tag on in the non-closing section or anything by status. That's another way that we can kind of zoom into those tasks. So I'm going to go over to the club section. Okay, and then these are all your closing. I'm going to go to non-closing tasks, and then these are all my tags here. So I just want to see if I have any, let me see what I know I have. Let's see if I have any payroll tasks or tasks with the payroll tag. It's a better way to say that. And then, so that's a saved view that I could have if I just want to see any payroll tasks that are coming up or any onboarding tasks that are coming up is another great way to use that. You can also clear out this filter and I can see anything with a specific status. So we see a lot of people using the status as like when you have other people working with you and they need to ask you about a question or you want to see what's kind of outstanding and waiting on a client. You can filter down by any of these statuses that you have here. So let's see if we have anything in the Ask Jody. I might not. And that way you know nothing's waiting on you, or you can see what's waiting on a client or anything like that. Again, all of that can be saved views. But that's a little bit of how to filter that big task list based on high priority tags or statuses as well. From here, I'm open to any questions on any of this, or we can pop into kind of troubleshooting. That's all I had as far as this, but I'm happy to dive into any of that more deeply or get a better view on what that might look like for you and your firm.
All right, we've got a question about an example of using and ask someone as a status. So this could be, I mean, really, it could be on any one of your tags. I mean, I'm sorry, on any one of your tasks. And it could be something where it's specific. Maybe it's for a manager that's not in the books all the time and you need to ask them specifically about a cleanup question or something went wonky with payroll or there's something unique about the bank fee that you haven't seen before and you need their assistance. And instead of pinging them with questions or through the chat, because sometimes that can be overwhelming. And again, this is all preference for your firm and what works for you. This was something that another firm found very helpful because all of the pings or the chat messages were getting overwhelming and a lot of things were getting lost. So they created this ask so-and-so status. And then first thing in the morning, that person would go in, sort their task list by that status and knew exactly what was on hold for her, waiting on her response. So that would be a great use of that. I hope that answered your question, but let me know if you need more detail on that.
So, I'm sorry, this is Teresa.
Yeah, go ahead.
I asked
No,
the
you're fine.
question.
Go ahead.
So you're telling me that over on the right where it says not started,
Uh-huh.
that's where you would change it to ask Jody, for
Yes.
example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so when you put in, let's say, ask Jody, what are you asking her? Are you just suggesting that she take a look at that task? Or should there be something else, like what is the question?
Right.
Okay.
Excellent point.
And where would you put that, for example?
I would encourage you to utilize the chat on that task. And maybe you just don't tag that person. Again, this has got to be set up for your firm. So if you want to be the task status is Ask Jody, and in the chat, you're tagging me in the chat there as well. It helps for that question to make sure that it's seen. So you can set up your own best practices within your firm. But yes, that is a great point, and follow up to that you would need to have some kind of notation in there so that they know what you're waiting on, and utilize that task.
Yeah, and one other way, depending on, again, how you're using your tech stack, I've seen people who set it to ask this person so that they have it in their task list to know that, hey, there's something going on with that task. But then they use Slack for all of their communication, and they have a specific client channel for that client. So you can go in there and pop more information about what the question was or anything like that. So there's definitely some options in here. Just kind of depends on what's working best. And it might even be a playing around to see what gives you the most information, the most like condensed amount of pings, but gives you what you need to work with your team. Does that give you any clarification or options there? Happy to expand on that if we need to.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, there was another one that says that it can also be good to to notify the team member when that status is chosen. So that's a great point. When you go into, Erica, can you go into the firm settings?
Yeah, I got you.
And we're going to look at those task statuses there.
And is
practice and statements? And then you're going to go to the tasks tab. And then all the way at the bottom, you've got task status options.
That's also where you can set up tags, just in case anybody's curious. Just as a heads up while I'm thinking about it and it's top of mind, I'm going to send out a resource afterward that talks about some of the tags that we've seen, some of the statuses that we've seen, and gives you some examples and SOPs on how to set it up as well. So know that that's on its way as well. But task status.
Okay. Go ahead and close that and then open close status options.
Yeah.
So this is something that's unique between your close status and your task status. With the close status, now this is going to be the client as a whole. So the entire close, the status of that, you can have notifications automatically send to specific people or to whoever is listed as the manager or the reviewer. So you can have that set up here. Unfortunately, you can't have that set up under task statuses. So that's what Renee was mentioning, was it'd be great to have the automatic notification in place, but we can't do that at the task level. You can only do that at the top close level. I hope that made sense to you guys. And again, we all know that Keeper is a sandbox. You can make it anything that you want. So you got to figure out, like, what is it that my firm needs? What's the best way for my team to communicate? And how do we want to go about doing that? And if you ever get stumped on the how-to, reach out to us. That's our favorite thing, is to brainstorm ways to get you to that place that you want to be. So that's how we ended up with the Ask Jody status. We brainstormed different ways of utilizing tags and statuses to help fit this one firm's needs. Okay, so we have another question. Can you go back to yep, there we go. So if you clicked on stuck, it would notify the manager. That is correct. So when you're looking at the client list and you change the status from in progress to stuck or waiting on client to stuck or whatever, once it gets changed to stuck, that manager would get notified. And Erica just posted a resource into the chat about that as well. Absolutely.
And just to kind of help clarify in case this is new for anybody, this can be helpful if you have different managers for different clients. So if it's always where an offboarding or stuck is going to go to you, that's totally fine. You can easily just assign that one user. But if it's this role and that manager is going to be different for each client, or the reviewer is going to be different for each client, that's a great way to help kind of narrow down to the role specifically when it's not one individual team member. So let us know if roles like preparer, manager, anything like that are new. We're happy to kind of pop into that as well. But that's kind of the difference between, okay, when might I want to use just the actual person or user here versus the actual role like a manager or a reviewer or anything like that.
Are we ready to shift on over to open Q&A?
Yeah, feel free.
All right. So if you guys have anything that you're troubleshooting, anything that you've been working on that you're just not quite sure how to use, or if there's a feature that you haven't played around with yet that you want to know a little bit more about, now's the time to ask. And an easy way to do this is first person, whoever wants to can just go. But if somebody else is talking, just drop the letter Q or something into the chat, and then we'll kind of get a list going of who we'll go to next. So feel free to ask away. We're here as a resource for you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Communication between team members. I'm struggling with the chat feature in Keeper and tracking things. What are you guys using for communication? Are you using something outside of Keeper?
It does vary. We actually use both. Erica and I, we use both the chat in the client, in Keeper, but we also do a lot through Slack. And I've heard that from a lot of people that they use both. Sometimes it'll depend on what it is you're trying to communicate. Is it something that is specific to a task, something that you're stumped on there, or is it just general information? So that's kind of up to you on how you'd want to use that. I know that the chat feature is something that Keeper has on their roadmap to continue to improve. It's not as robust as something like Slack would be, or Teams chat, like that kind of thing. It's not as robust, but they're hoping to get there at some point. So that's where you kind of have to look at, like, what is it doing for my firm, and let us know, like, what issues are you running into? Maybe we can figure out a workaround.
Well, like for one issue would be like one of my team members sent me several questions from different clients, and then later there was no central place for her to go and see what she had sent me. She would have to remember which client, go into the client, go to that client's box and say, oh yes, I did ask her that. Like, there was nowhere to follow up on those things to see if you got an answer, to see if you're missing something.
Right. Yes, that is one of the biggest clunks about the chat feature right now, because it also goes the same for the opposite way. You get a notification that somebody has sent you a message or tagged you in a message, but then you go to the client that they're talking about and you have to hunt through the tasks to find that.
Yeah, you have to find button. Where that red
so we hear you
is.
Yeah, we definitely hear you and sympathize, because a lot of people talk about that, and that's where it's on their radar, but there's not a solution quite yet. So
And I would imagine that there's probably some development side on that as well. So I am not a developer by any means, but I have to assume that there's probably some big shifts that have to happen for there to be an all new section of like email history or chat history or anything like that.
Right.
So we definitely understand that one. But in that case, you may consider opening up Slack or something like that, that you can have specific client channels.
Even
that
a
way,
shared Google Doc too could work. If you just need something to work around, you could always use that too. Be like in Keeper, here are the clients that have questions, and here, which ones have been answered, just quick check boxes.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there
It's
wasn't
clunky.
an inbox somewhere that I was missing.
Not yet, no, unfortunately.
Okay.
great question
Yeah.
though, for sure.
All right, our next question is from Teresa about firm tasks. So I'm going to share my screen.
Absolutely.
And firm tasks, this is another space that is not fully robust yet. There's could be some improvements, but there are great ways to utilize this space as well. I'm going to collapse my sections just so it's not overwhelming what we currently have in here. But you can set up as many sections in here as you want. You simply just click on new and open it. And then from here, you can add any kind of task you want. These sections function the same way as a non-closing task section. So it has the due soon, due later, completed. You can see that you've got all of the task tags in here as well. And of course, you've got the statuses are there. You can still assign it to people. You can repeat due dates. So all of this functions very much the same. The way that we've seen people using it is you can have each person on the team could have their own task list. And for firm tasks, I see this as something that is not client specific. If it's client specific, put it in the client close in their non-closing task section or one of your custom sections or something that is associated with that task. If it's not something like that, then maybe put it elsewhere. So like here's some new templates and workflows we want to create. We've got those in here. We've got notes of what we want to add in below. So that's one way that you can use it. Training new hires could also be a section in here. So you can keep track with like, what have they done so far? And what do they still need to do for training? One thing to keep in mind about this, and I know that there's a canny out there somewhere requesting like privacy in this area, but everybody on your team can see this. Admin, standard users, everybody, the whole firm will see everything that's on this tab in this section. So there's no way of hiding it. So it's just what you're seeing. One workaround to that we have seen some people use is by creating their own account here and just having them have access to it. And then they can put in their own private notes and tasks in the non-closing task tags here. So hopefully that answers your question, Teresa.
I did want to mention one thing really quickly as well, because we have the tags and things like that. We can also see any of your firm tasks in your task list. So if part of the issue is like, okay, I want to put this here because it's like in the business, but maybe not like client specific, or it's about team training or anything like that, you can always use that exactly. Using that just to make sure that you're not missing anything that is in firm tasks. All of it will be pulled into the task list.
Yes, exactly. And that's going to be listed under close instead of section. It'll just be lumped in under firm tasks. All right.
And while we were chatting about that, I want to go to the chat here in just 1 second, but I did realize that not to throw too many options, but to get a little bit creative. If you're trying to find that solution and you're not 100% sold on Slack or not wanting to jump in on that front, but you are looking for a workaround other than just the simple chat feature inside of Keeper, a couple of things that I've seen in the group as workarounds are listing anything in that client details section. So let me make sure I'm putting a visual to that as well. Let me make sure I have it set up on this account. You can set it up as the in the client details section here at the top. In here in this dumping ground. You can also pull that out in your settings so it shows up here as a quick glance. Or somebody mentioned in the chat, and I thought this was another option out there, is to add a like non-closing task that just says client questions and list something down below, or infirm tasks. Again, I don't know that those would be my first choice, but if you're just trying to play test and figure out what's going to work best for your team, and especially if you're working with a new team member and you haven't established 100% great communication channels, or they're still training and they have a lot more questions, some of those might be areas to either consider or that might spark your brain in another way to get some inspiration.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, I'm chuckling at Teresa's note of, if you're going to fire somebody, don't put it in Keeper. Because I read it.
Or at least put it in your account of
Right.
like, this is my business, admin only, and I'm the only one assigned. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
exactly.
actually, we joke about that, but that was a serious mention in a thread here recently in the Keeper Facebook group about like, hey, is there any way to work around not having privacy? I'm trying to put in there to review somebody's raise, but I can't put that in firm tasks. So stuff like that, probably a good mention to just have in your brain that is across the firm, and that means that that is visible.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, we also had a question from Amanda about organizing files. So this, again, is one of those other extra areas where they're still building it out so that it can be more robust. Eric and I will send out some resources that we have regarding that. It's mainly like we've picked up where Keeper has explained it a little bit clearer on how you can have those files organized. I don't feel confident enough to show you right now because I think I would flub it up a little bit. It is still in the works. There are ways to, or Keeper explains to you how the file structure comes to be. So like if it's a tag, or it has to do with a task, or if it's dropped in through the portal versus as a question. So there's different things there. We'll send that out to you so that you can review it, and feel free to ask questions as you go through that. Yeah. But that is something on the roadmap as well. And I feel like I'm saying that a lot. So I wanted to add this caveat. When the guys created Keeper, they designed it specifically for month-end close, just for all those tasks that you needed to double check. And users
or compare with QBO and pull it in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And users have pushed the system to be something that they want. So Keeper is desperately trying to keep up with us and solve all of these things that we keep asking them to do, and they're doing a fabulous job. Where it's come from 2 years ago is unbelievable. It's not the same system, but that's why these things like chat and file structures and that kind of thing are still in the works, and they're working hard to get those done as well. But that's why it's just we've pushed it beyond what they even imagined Keeper could be, which is exciting, and they love it. But it just takes time to, like Erica said, I'm not a developer. The whole back end of how they have to put these things in, I have no idea, but I know that they hear us and they're working on it.
And then feel free to turn on the mic and if you have a question about templates and implementation. More than happy to pop into that.
Okay. When you my Keeper has no templates, and I'm intrigued by templates because it's got to be a huge time saver.
It is.
But let's say I decide, okay, I'm going to create these templates. When I want to, if I push them out, are they going to push to every client, or can I be specific as to who gets the template?
Yeah, let me actually show you that. They have made it. Oh, beautiful! We're both going to the same place then.
Fire away.
Yes. So when you're in your template section and you click on a template, up here's where you can choose to add to client. And then from here, you get to pick and choose which ones you want. There is a button for all clients, but you can also pick and choose which one of those clients you want it to go to. So you could send it to only one client if you wanted to, or you could push it out to everybody. So you definitely have that flexibility there.
Okay, so a follow-up question is let's say I'm going to create a template for bank reconciliations. So it's going to go into, bear with me, I got to get to
This section here, account reconciliation.
Yeah, let's say I want to create a template for that for whatever
Yes.
reason. Don't ask me
Mhm.
why, but
Yeah,
one
you
of
want to
those,
list out what the
yeah.
steps are. Yeah.
one of those canned lists that we have,
Yeah.
account rec, transaction review,
Like all
whatnot.
this. Yes.
Does it write over what I've already got there?
Okay, so it's funny that you ask about this one because this specific section and the checklists that go underneath it are unique to everything else. It does not follow the same rules because when you're in a template, this is all it shows, all account reconciliation tasks. There's not a specific account because it's going to be applied to everything that you have underneath account reconciliation within your client. Because of that, if you make changes here, you make updates, you create a new checklist that you want to use here, and you try to drop it in to a client, it will not add anything unless that space is blank. So if you currently have something else in there underneath your accounts, so let me show you once it loads. Okay. So I currently have these in here. Nothing else is going to paste in here if I try to update this, even if it has the same titles, my checklist. Even if the titles are exactly the same, but I've made an update, I've deleted something or I've added something, it will not update it. You have to delete everything at the client level to be able to drop in a new checklist. Now, again, I don't want to scare you guys. This is only for account reconciliation.
Okay.
Only for account. Yes.
Okay.
Only for
Makes
that.
sense.
If that was the way it was for everything, whew, no, it's just this unique one here. Because I ran into this not too long ago.
If it's for anything but account reconciliation.
Yes. Excellent question again. Okay.
Does it write over or does it append?
It depends on what you're changing. So if you are changing something in the task name, and I'll say that like this part is the name, the parent task, if you will. Mm-hmm. If you're changing something in here, even if it's punctuation, and you drop this in, it will create a second task.
Because it doesn't read that they're the exact same.
Right.
Because it says, oh, this is a new task. It's a different name. Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so it's going to
is the same.
It's going to basically, right. It will duplicate. Let's say we're removing that comma after the word liabilities. Right. So I'm now going to have two tasks or two lists that are basically the same, one with a comma and one without a comma. So it's not writing over my data.
Unless it has the exact same name, which is the kind of
okay. Yes. So if you leave this alone, but you change this, say you delete a couple of these checklists, or you add in a new checklist, or you change something within the checklist, that will overwrite.
Because the parent name is exactly the same.
Correct. Yeah, because it says, oh, you've made changes to this task. I'm going to put in whatever's in the template because it seems like you want to create that as whatever's in the template. But again, that's why that logic works. Sometimes it helps, at least for my non-techie brain, to understand why it's doing this. So if it reads, hey, this is a different task, even if it's like a little punctuation, it's not going to overwrite that because it says, oh, these are different. Okay, I'll add in another one. But if it's the exact same, it says, oh, okay, so you want me to just update this to whatever's in the template. Cool. And then it'll change anything that's underneath.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Big help.
Now,
okay.
Yeah. So Teresa, if you've dropped in a template, but you've got some updates for it, you've dropped it into all of your clients, but you have one client that does something just a little bit different. So maybe it's here for your notes payable. It's just a little bit different for one client. I don't want that to overwrite ever because it's just different. It's unique to this client. I want it to stay there. What I would do then is at the client level, let me just show you, at the client level, you would make a change. I'm going to come down here and say load for growth custom boards. By adding this little note, by adding anything to it here at the client level, if I drop in the template again, because I've updated other things, you'll see a duplicate of this one without the GCB. So this makes it unique for this client, and it will not get overwritten because it's changed. I think I might have confused you guys, but
no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
it makes
so
sense.
that helps.
But then again, let's say you're making a change to the detail in that parent, okay? And you want to push it to all of your clients. I guess you just kind of need to know that you don't want to push it to growth custom boards.
I would ultimately just have a little brain think and say, okay, this is the same for everybody except growth custom boards. So let's go change the title on that task, and then I can just apply it to the board, to everybody, and go in and delete that one. So it's just a bit of a think before to see, okay, this is different for this one client. Should I go ahead and push it? Because there's a lot of other changes I've made in this template. I want all the rest to be reflected. It's just this one task that's a little bit different. If that were the case, I'd go in and just label that task so you can go in and save that clean in the client account. Or if you're like, their whole process is different, I'm going to push this out to everybody else, and I'll go make specific changes just in that account.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
This leads to another thing I'd like to let you guys know as well. If you are in your templates and you decide to delete something from the template, and then you've made other changes and you've decided, okay, I'm ready to update my clients with the revised template. If you've deleted something, it is not going to automatically delete from all of your clients. You will have to go in and delete that at the client level. We have a Canny request out there to be able to delete that from the task section or from the tasks list, because then it would be really easy to search for that task list or put a special status on it that says delete.
Or a special tag or something like that.
But that is not something that we're able to do. So as of right now, you have to go client by client to delete that unnecessary step, or to delete that task that you no longer need.
Yeah, so that can save you from accidentally like deleting pieces and stuff like that when you reapply a template, especially if you've layered over a couple of templates. So know that nothing's going to get deleted when you reapply that template. You'll just have to mark that in some way so that you can go back and grab that and delete it on the client level until we get a workaround to make that actual deleting in bulk process slightly easier.
Yeah. We'll find that Canny request for you, Tracy, so everybody can upvote it.
Yeah, I'll send it out in my follow-up email with the resource and everything like that, for sure.
Big fan of sharing those Canny requests.
Yeah, that's actually a really good mention. If you're new in the community or anything like that, sometimes it can feel weird to like share. You see some people in the Facebook group being like, hey, upvote this Canny request or anything. Go do it. Like there's no downside. Nobody's going to judge you for that, because in fact, a lot of us just don't realize that's not a feature yet, or don't realize that like that Canny's out there, but the Cannies work by upvotes. So anything that gets more upvotes gets on their attention, on their radar faster. So there's no shame sharing it in the group. And in fact, that's one of the best ways to get it out there and get that product on the radar, or that feature on the radar. And there's probably a lot of other people out there who are wishing for the same thing. So don't feel bad about mentioning that. There's probably a lot of us that are like, oh, I'll go upvote that and get it on their radar too. Jody, actually, I have a question when it comes to layering templates and stuff like that we were just talking about. When it comes to, you were talking about like when you change the parent name, that's when things will duplicate. I'm curious if that includes the description. Like if you change something in the description, does that also register as like a new task, you know?
I'm trying to remember because I remember researching this for a video we did. No, I think it's just the parent task name. So you can update the description.
Cool. Appreciate that. We'll do a quick double check afterward just to make sure nothing went haywire. We didn't misremember that or anything, but
Yeah.
I'll include that in the follow-up if it is like, hey, quick mess up there it is, or it isn't, but that's
I'm
actually
pretty
really
sure
cool
you
to know.
can.
I was curious
Yeah.
about that. That's what was stuck in my brain. I just didn't want to flub that answer.
It's been a while, but I remember sitting down testing every different like combination of things
Variation
in
to
there.
see when it
Yeah.
duplicates. Yeah.
Well, we've got about 5 minutes left of our allotted time. Eric and I are always happy to stay on later than that for anybody who continues to have questions, or if there's something specific to your firm that you want to talk just to us about. We're here. Amanda, yes, we will be at BKX. We will be there, so come look for us. But
we'll probably be hanging around the keeper
yeah.
table, so feel free to come ask us questions or come say hi.
Yeah, we'll be hovering.
Anything like that.
We do not have our own table or booth, but we will be there in person, and like she said, we'll be hovering around the keeper area. But yeah, any other questions, feel free to fire away. If not, you're welcome to go and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Thanks so much for hopping on. These are always super fun to just kind of troubleshoot, answer questions, learn more ourselves. So thank you guys for the time just as much as you're thanking us.
Yes, thank you.
Do you guys have any scoop on the time tracking module? Do you have any inside info as to what they're going to do with that? Because it's kind of clunky, but I use it. It could be better, obviously. Do you know?
I wish I could say yes. I wish I could say that I had the inside track on all of their updates, but I don't. I'm right there with you guys with hearing when new features come out. So no, I don't know where it is on the roadmap. I know that people, like I said, there's canny requests out there for various things when it comes to time tracking, but I don't know what they have in store coming up next for any updates.
Yeah, the things that I've seen in the group that Ben's mentioned are client portal. I feel like there might be one other thing that's like, reporting is another thing that's like pretty close on the roadmap, or that they're actively building it out. Past that, I'm not 100% sure. There is a way to look at the roadmap in Canny though, if you're ever curious about that and you haven't come across that. You can go in the actual timeline and just kind of see where they're at or where certain features are. So no immediate answer on that question, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Anything else, Teresa? You had some great questions. I just want to make sure you got them all answered.
Oh, I'm sorry. I could just kill your afternoon if you let me, but no.
We're here.
Oh, I mean that's why we do these every month, is because this is the day that we look forward to, because it just gets us out of our bubble a little bit and gets us like thinking critically about Keeper and how to use it different. And I really love this in Asana. How can you get Keeper to do it? And those kind of questions. So no, definitely don't feel bad about any questions. These are great.
Well, I was an Asana user. I used Asana, and you know, it did its job. And then the next thing I see is this Keeper app, and I'm like, wait, what? Wait, whoa.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm jumping ship off of Asana, because it's like, you know, Asana was a lot of work. No, you did something in QuickBooks, you had to, okay, I got to stop. I got to go over to Asana, mark it off. And then, you know, you move on. But with Keeper, the fact that you can interact with QuickBooks is like a game changer.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well,
so
that and the fact that they've set up recurring tasks to be easy. Because like if you're a bookkeeper, that has to be part of your thing. Like most of your tasks recur on some frequency or another. So honestly, even with some of the clunks and some of the quirks of Keeper right now, it's still the system that we use. Because of the reason that you're talking about, we hear a lot of like, I can't either get myself on board or get my team on board with like just jumping back and forth between systems, because you either end up duplicating like tasks in both, or you have to update both, or you end up missing stuff because like I didn't have my task list open in Asana. I was already working in QBO for the day and stuff like that. So no, we're definitely on the same train for sure.
I would like it if, and I guess I should add this to the Canny thing, is, because you can actually create a task from an email in Gmail with that feature. I don't know what you want to call it.
The Chrome extension. There's some fun stuff in that Chrome extension. I haven't played with it too much, but there's a lot you can do from there. It's great.
Right. But if they can do that for Outlook, I would love that, because unfortunately, the team that I'm joining is using Outlook, and I just gnash my teeth and pull my hair. It's Outlook.
Yeah.
But so it's a lot of times I'll send things to I'll get an email that I know it's like, yeah, this is a task in Keeper. How do I get it over to Keeper without me having to type it? So I send it over to my old Gmail account. Then I pop it into Keeper.
That good workaround.
Well, yeah, I'm like, I'm not going to type any more than I have to. So, yeah. Okay. All right.
Sure.
Amanda asked about automations as far as using Zapier. Right now, there's only a couple of things that you can do. It's really minor.
They did a quick update here relatively soon. There's slightly more that we could do. We're still definitely waiting for that. So we're definitely waiting for that. But as a quick kind of cursory glance, you can bring over, like, have it add a new client for you when a contract's signed. You can have it drop in a template when a contract is signed. And some of those pieces are kind of the most foundational right now. We're definitely all like cross fingers, so ready for that automation to be there.
Ooh, because I have Zapier. I love Zapier.
It's one of those things that's next up on my bucket list to really dive into. I just really want to, especially, I keep thinking about the ideal business where you have like your CRM talking to your project manager and all of that kind of thing. So it goes from beginning to end without having to do much. So that's our fingers crossed, really hoping for that.
Agree. Agree.
Amanda, I actually want to answer a question that is in here as well. So email campaigns, there's not a ton we can do on the Keeper side quite yet, but you can send blast emails if that's new for you.
To all your clients.
Yeah, so if you're like moving over to a new system, like you're just now moving to the client portal and letting everybody know, or if you have a big firm update or something like that, you can definitely send out one to all clients. That's going to be a good one whenever that comes out, though, being able to send like multiple grouped emails together.
We have not played with AI.
I have not gone down that rabbit hole yet, for sure.
I'm staying in my lane over here. I don't know. Tracy, you crack me up. Are you coming to BKX?
It's in her backyard. That's what her answer to me was. Because I asked her last week, and she was like, "It's in my backyard."
The bigger question is that you're coming.
You better be there. No
excuses,
right?
No, none. Yes, I will be there for sure. Actually, my whole team is going to be there. This will be the first time we're all together in one place.
Good.
That's awesome.
I love that for you.
Remind me, how big is your
virtual teams? It's fun to be able to like all group up. 3?
Cool.
Oh, that's great.
That's fun.
Dana. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Good.
Yeah, for sure. Amanda, actually, you mentioned template emails. You can do that. So if you go into templates, there's an email section, past, project, and closes, that you can set up email. And there's actually a few variables that you can use in there. So you can have it auto pull the client name or their client portal link or anything like that as well. So definitely play around with that. There's a handful that are usually in there to give you a good idea of what's possible and what people usually end up needing, but definitely go play around with
Teresa.
that. It's a really fun one.
And don't do what I did. I accidentally sent one out that actually put the first name of every client. I don't even remember how.
No.
How do you do that?
I
Did you send a blast email?
Yeah, I did a blast email, and it just, hey,
everybody,
Chris, Ramona, da, 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 da. I mean, it listed the first name of every.
Oh my gosh!
I don't even know how
that
to do
is
that.
terrible. Oh, that makes my heart hurt.
I don't even know how to respond to
I'm
that.
guessing everybody just laughed about it because nobody replied and went.
Surely.
That or they're not reading any of my emails. I don't know. It's one or the other.
Oh, good gracious. That's
my
painful.
gosh.
So yeah,
Pretty excited
definitely
about that.
test what you're doing to make sure.
Yeah.
I learned that I did email like blast and email marketing and stuff like that for a very long time, and that was my number one. Before you do anything, test it. And I always had to test it with my personal accounts grouped in there as well, so that I could get a good scope of like, okay, what happens when I add multiple and how does that get weird? But great plug, Tracy. That's good to know, just to keep an eye out for that.
Well, you know, that original Gmail address that I got whenever I started my company is my test email. So I definitely, yes, it goes out to the team and that, and then okay, what happened?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody show me your copy, make sure it looked right. Yep, that was always mine. I always had a test that went straight to our company email. I always had a test from my personal and like one or two others that I was like, okay, everybody collect. So everybody's look the same here. Anybody get wonky? Love that. Amanda, any other questions? Exactly. Yeah. I think you have to be in this line of work just to make sure everything's working with all the tools we use.
And we do brainstorming chats. If you ever want to sit down and brainstorm.
Yeah, just shoot us an email. That's easy. And we save time every week to make sure that those are that we have space for that. So feel free to either shoot a question or hop on a chat with us. That's easy stuff. Anytime. Awesome. Well, ladies, unless there's any last questions, I might go ahead and wrap us there so we don't all spend the next 2 hours just chit-chatting, because I know we will. So that being said, thank you again. If there's any questions that come up, if you guys are, Amanda, if you're going to BKX, we'll see you there. Tracy, we'll definitely see you there. And then, yeah, we do these every month as well. So we'll send you another email next month about the same time, just to let you know in case you have any new questions or you want to see the next topic. But other than that, we'll see you later, guys. Thanks so much.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Thank y'all.
Bye.